The skyship trimmer hummed gently against the backdrop of the drifting islands, its worn wood creaking with every subtle shift in altitude. Inside the cramped cabin, Elara Voss sat at the weathered desk, her fingers tracing the inked lines of the ancient map fragments spread before her. The air was thick with the scent of oil and parchment, mingling with the faint tang of salt from the endless sky. Her sharp green eyes darted between the fragmented cartography, searching for a pattern, a clue, anything that might guide them closer to the cartographer's compass. A sudden knock at the door startled her from her concentration. "Elara, can I come in?" The voice was quiet, hesitant Jorin's. She looked up, brow furrowed. "What is it, Jorin?" The young deckhand stepped inside, his usual eager demeanor replaced by a nervous tension that made her stomach tighten. I need to tell you something important." Elara gestured for him to sit, her instincts sharpening. "Speak freely, Jorin." He swallowed hard, eyes flickering to the shadows cast by the lantern. "I haven't been honest. I've been working with Mythic." The words hit her like a thunderclap. For a moment, the room seemed to hold its breath, the only sound the distant rumble of thunder outside as a storm brewed on the horizon. "Why?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. Jorin's gaze dropped. "I was scared. Mythic promised safety for me and my family. I never wanted to betray you, but I didn't see another way." Elara's mind raced. Betrayal within her own crew was a wound deeper than any storm she had faced. Yet beneath the shock, she felt a flicker of something else, a reluctant understanding of fear's grip. She stood, pacing the cabin as the weight of the revelation settled. "We can't afford such fractures. The mission depends on trust, Jorin. But I believe people can change." The storm outside intensified, rain lashing against the ship's hull, a fitting mirror to the turmoil within. Elara summoned Cale Merrin to the cabin, needing his steady presence. Cal arrived, his rugged face shadowed with concern. "You found out." She nodded, recounting the confession. Cale's jaw clenched, his hands curling into fists. "I should have seen it. I was too focused on the ship's mechanics and forgot to watch the crew's hearts." Together, they gathered the crew in the mess hall, the air thick with tension and whispered fears. Voices rose in anger and confusion as the betrayal became known. Elara stepped forward, her voice calm but resolute. "This is a moment that could break us or make us stronger. We must choose trust over suspicion, collaboration over division. We are bound by a shared purpose." Slowly the room quieted. Cale's steady gaze met hers, a silent pledge of support. Even Jorin, humbled and remorseful, nodded in agreement. As night deepened, Elara retreated to the deck, the lantern's flickering glow illuminating her sketchbook. She drew new rotes, her fingers steady despite the storm's fury. The stars above were cold and distant, but her resolve burned brighter than ever. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with peril and mistrust, but she would face it head on, not alone, but with those who chose to stand beside her. The betrayal had shaken their foundation, but it had also unearthed a vital truth. The greatest challenges of exploration were not just in the shifting skies or hidden islands, but in the fragile bonds forged between those who dared to seek the unknown. And Elara Voss was determined to hold those bonds together, no matter the cost. With a final glance at the swirling clouds, she whispered to the night, "We move forward together." The storm raged on, but so did their journey, the cartographer's compass still calling them to unravel the mysteries of the floating isles. The sky was an ever-changing mosaic of blues and grays, a living canvas painted by the drifting islands and the restless clouds above them. Elara Voss stood at the helm of the skyship, her lean figure silhouetted against the vast expanse. Her sharp green eyes scanned the horizon with unyielding focus, every muscle taut with anticipation. The cartographer's compass, an enigmatic relic she had only recently begun to understand, rested in her palm, its delicate glow pulsing like a heartbeat. Beneath them, the floating islands drifted silently, their jagged cliffs and lush forests a stark contrast to the churning skies. Each island was a world unto itself, a fragment of mystery waiting to be charted. Elara's fingers brushed the worn edges of a map, the faded ink revealing hints of ancient pathways and forgotten secrets. The compass needle twitched, subtle yet insistent, guiding her gaze toward a cluster of islands cloaked in mist. "Kale," Elara called, her voice steady despite the mounting tension in the air. "Prepare the ship for possible turbulence. These skies are growing restless." Kale Merrin, ever pragmatic and quick-witted, moved with practiced ease, checking the rigging and engines. His tousled brown hair was damp with sweat, the leather flight jacket clinging to his rugged frame. "Storms like these don't announce themselves, Elara. We'll need every advantage the compass can give us." Elara nodded, her mind racing through calculations and contingencies. The crew bustled about the deck, securing sails and double-checking instruments. Professor Lysandra Hale, elegant and composed even amid chaos, joined Elara in the navigation room. Her sharp blue eyes reflected a cautious optimism as she examined the compass and maps spread across the table. "The compass seems to be responding to some kind of energy in the islands," Lysandra observed, tracing her finger along an ancient script. "It's as if it's attuned not just to location, but to the very essence of these floating worlds." Elara's gaze flicked back to the glowing compass. If that's true, it might be our only hope of navigating the ever-shifting skies. But the storms are growing fiercer. We can't afford to rely on luck. Suddenly, the sky darkened, the sun swallowed by a churning mass of clouds. A low rumble of thunder rolled across the expanse, growing louder with each heartbeat. The wind screamed through the rigging, bending the masts as the ship shuddered under nature's assault. "Hold on!" Elara shouted, gripping the wheel as the skyship lurched violently. Cal and the crew sprang into action, their shouts lost amid the roar of the tempest. The compass's glow intensified, its needle spinning wildly before locking onto a steady point.
Elara's eyes narrowed. "Follow the compass!"
"Trust it knows the way." Lightning split the sky, illuminating the jagged cliffs of a nearby island veiled in storm clouds. The wind tore at the sails, threatening to rip them free. Kale's hands danced over the controls, steadying the engines as the ship was buffeted by gusts that felt like the breath of a furious beast. In the cramped navigation room, Lysandra held a lantern high, reading aloud ancient warnings etched into the parchment. These islands were once home to a civilization that mastered the skies but vanished in a great storm. We must be cautious. Elara's heart pounded, every decision a razor's edge between survival and disaster. The compass pulsed like a beacon, its subtle guidance cutting through the chaos. "Steady now," she murmured, more to herself than anyone else. We were almost through. The storm's fury reached a crescendo, the skyship pitching and rolling as if caught in the jaws of a leviathan. Crew members shouted orders, their faces etched with fear and resolve. Cal's voice rang clear, brace for impact. A violent gust slammed the ship's side, snapping a mast and sending a spray of rain-lashed debris across the deck. Elara's grip faltered for a moment, but the compass's steady glow restored her resolve.
"Now, full throttle!"
she commanded. The engines roared in response, propellers slicing through the turbulent air. Slowly, agonizingly, the skyship emerged from the storm's grasp, the clouds parting to reveal a sky strewn with stars and the pale light of distant floating islands. On deck, the crew exhaled in unison, faces wet with rain and relief. Elara lowered the compass, its glow now a gentle warmth in her palm. Kale clapped her shoulder, a grin breaking through his fatigue. "You did it, Elara. The compass saved us." She allowed herself a brief smile, but her mind was already turning, the endless journey stretching before them. "This is only the beginning," she said softly. "The skies are full of secrets, and we have only just begun to uncover them." As the first light of dawn painted the floating islands in hues of gold and rose, Elara sketched new lines on her map, each stroke a promise of discovery. The compass, silent once more, rested beside her, a guide not just through the shifting skies, but through the uncharted territories of hope and courage. The journey ahead was uncertain, fraught with peril and wonder, but Elara's determination burned brighter than ever. The unknown beckoned, and with the compass as her ally, she was ready to navigate whatever storms awaited. And somewhere beyond the horizon, the floating islands whispered their ancient secrets, waiting for the cartographer's hand to reveal their mysteries. The dense canopy above filtered the sunlight into scattered, golden shards that danced across the jungle floor as Elara Voss led her crew deeper into the heart of the hidden island. The air was thick with humidity and the rich scent of damp earth and blooming orchids, a sensory tapestry that seemed to pulse with the island's ancient heartbeat. Each step forward was cautious. The undergrowth was dense, and the silence was punctuated only by distant calls of unseen birds and the occasional rustle of leaves underfoot. Cale Merrin, ever vigilant, scanned the surroundings with a mixture of curiosity and wariness, his leather flight jacket catching the faint light as he adjusted the straps of his gear. Beside him, Professor Lysandra Hale moved with deliberate grace, her sharp blue eyes flickering with anticipation beneath the silver-streaked strands of hair that framed her composed face. The professor's expertise in ancient cartography and island lore was the key to deciphering the mysteries that lay ahead. Suddenly, the jungle gave way to a clearing, and there before them rose the towering ruins, enormous stone structures, partially reclaimed by nature, their surfaces worn smooth by centuries of wind and rain. Vines clung like veins along the carved faces, and moss carpeted the fractured steps leading upwards. The ruins seemed to breathe history, whispering secrets long buried beneath layers of time. Elara's breath hitched slightly, her sharp green eyes wide with awe as she took in the sight. These carvings, she murmured, stepping closer to the nearest monolith, very unlike anything recorded in the known maps. Professor Hale knelt beside the stone, her fingers tracing the weathered grooves that depicted a series of intricate scenes, islands drifting serenely through the skies, colossal winged creatures soaring alongside, and figures humanoids with delicate features interacting with the land and sky as if part of a grand cosmic dance. Faint luminescence emanated from the carvings, a soft glow that seemed to pulse in rhythm with the island itself. This, Hale said softly, is a record of the island's origins, not merely landmasses adrift, but living entities intertwined with the very essence of the sky. The cartographer's compass is more than a tool. It's a key to understanding this delicate balance. Elara felt the weight of those words settle upon her shoulders. The compass she had sought for so long was not simply a device to chart unknown lands, but a symbol of respect and stewardship. Her mind raced with implications. If the islands were alive in some sense, then reckless mapping or exploitation could disrupt an ancient harmony. Cale broke the reverent silence. So it's not just about discovery then, it's about responsibility. Exactly, Hale replied, eyes fixed on the mural. The more we learn, the clearer it becomes that these islands, and by extension, the compass, demand guardianship rather than conquest. Elara nodded, her usual stubborn resolve tempered by a newfound humility. The journey ahead was no longer just about proving legend or personal glory. It was about preserving a world that defied conventional understanding. As the day waned, the crew set up camp within the protective embrace of the ruins. The flickering campfire cast long, dancing shadows across the ancient stones, weaving a tapestry of light and darkness. Around the fire, conversations turned to the moral dilemmas unearthed alongside the physical artifacts. Cal shared tales of past missteps and fears about the future, while Hale voiced her concerns about exploitation by those like Captain Marik Crane. Elara listened, her gaze drifting to the compass nestled within her satchel, its surface cool and inscrutable. "We must tread carefully," she said finally, "not only to find new worlds, but to ensure they endure beyond our reach." Night deepened, and the stars emerged silent witnesses to the echoes of the ancients etched in stone. The floating islands above continued their eternal dance, mysterious and beautiful, as if waiting for the next chapter in their story to unfold under Elara's watchful eyes. The discoveries on the hidden island had changed everything. The map in her hands was no longer just a guide, but a covenant, a call to balance the hunger for knowledge with the duty to protect. And as dawn approached, Elara felt the stirring of a resolve stronger than ever, to lead not only an expedition of exploration, but a mission of preservation, honoring the fragile wonders of the skies. The journey ahead promised challenges beyond storms and rival hunters. It demanded wisdom, trust, and a courage rooted in respect for the unknown. Elara closed her journal, the pages filled with sketches of the carvings and notes on their meanings, her heart steady with determined wonder. The echoes of the ancients were clear now, and she was ready to answer their call. But as the first light of morning brushed the horizon, a distant rumble echoed faintly, a reminder that the skies still held secrets and dangers yet unseen. The adventure was far from over. Elara's grip tightened on the compass. The sky darkened abruptly. The serene expanse of drifting clouds twisted into a furious tempest that seemed to roar its wrath directly at the fragile skyship. Elara Voss stood at the helm, her sharp green eyes narrowing as the first jagged bolts of lightning rent the air, illuminating the swirling chaos around them. The wind howled, a banshee's wail that rattled the timbers and tore at the sails, while rain lashed like icy needles against their faces. Inside the cramped cockpit, Kael Merrin's hands clenched the controls with a fierce grip, his usual wry smile wiped away by the storm's sudden violence. His tousled brown hair was plastered to his forehead, sweat mingling with rain as he fought to keep the battered skyship steady.
Hold tight!
He shouted over the roar, voice taut but resolute. Every muscle in his body was taut, nerves stretched thin as the vessel lurched and groaned beneath the assault. Elara's heart pounded wildly, a tempest of its own brewing within her chest. The cartographer's compass, faintly glowing on the navigation table before her, seemed almost alive, pulsing softly as if sensing the danger. She traced the arcane symbols etched on its surface, the compass needle quivering wildly, but hinting at a path through the storm's eye. It was a slender hope, but it was all they had. The skyship trembled violently, a massive gust nearly ripping the mainmast from its moorings. Screams echoed from the crew as loose rigging whipped through the air, and the deck tilted sharply, sending a cascade of crates tumbling like falling dominoes. Elara barked orders, her voice cutting through the cows. "Secure the lines. Brace for impact. Cal, steer us north toward the calm." Cal's jaw clenched. Memories of past failures flickered, unbidden moments when fear had nearly claimed him, when a wrong move had cost lives. But now, with Elara's steady presence beside him, those ghosts faded into the storm's howling fury. He adjusted the throttles, maneuvering the skyship through the swirling vortex of clouds with a pilot's precision born of desperation and grit. The tempest seemed to mock their efforts, striking with relentless fury. Lightning stabbed the skyship's rigging, sparks flying. Thunder cracked like a cannon blast, shaking the very ribs of the vessel. The deck heaved beneath their feet as the storm clawed at them with invisible talons. Yet Kael persisted, voice calm but urgent as he relayed commands to the crew below deck. Elara's gaze never wavered from the compass. The needle steadied, pointing unerringly toward a narrow gap in the storm's heart. It was a perilous path, a razor's edge between destruction and salvation. She weighed the risks. Abandoning the ship meant certain death in the storm's embrace. Guiding them through might mean survival, but only if they trusted the compass and each other. "We go through," she declared, voice firm. "Trust the compass. Trust me." A collective breath seemed to draw in the crew as they rallied behind her determination. The skyship lurched forward, plunging into the storm's eye. The howling winds softened to a furious whisper, the rain easing to a steady drumbeat. For a fleeting moment, the chaos paused, suspended in a fragile balance. Then the storm's fury returned with renewed vigor, but the skyship held firm, slicing through the tempest like a blade. Cal's hands danced over the controls, sweat and rain streaming down his face, but his eyes shone with a fierce light.
Almost there.
He yelled, voice raw but triumphant. Finally, the clouds began to part, revealing the sky beyond a vast canvas painted in golds and pinks by the setting sun. The battered vessel drifted beneath the clearing heavens, sails torn but intact, the crew exhausted yet alive. Elara stepped onto the deck, the cool breeze a balm against her flushed skin. Around her, the crew leaned on one another, faces etched with relief and newfound resolve. Cal approached, a faint smile breaking through his wariness. "We made it," he said simply. "Together," Elara replied, her voice steady despite the storm still raging in her heart. As twilight deepened, the cartographer's compass pulsed softly in her pocket, a glowing promise of the uncharted worlds yet to be discovered. The storm had tested them, but it had also forged a bond stronger than any gale. The journey was far from over. The skies still held secrets, dangers, and wonders beyond imagining, and Elara Voss, with Kale Merrin at her side, was ready to face them all. The compass was not just a tool, it was a beacon of hope, a guide through the unknown, and a testament to the enduring spirit of exploration. Above, the stars began to emerge, twinkling like distant islands waiting to be found. The endless sky beckoned, and Elara's heart soared with determined wonder, ready to chart the next chapter of their adventure. The morning sun filtered gently through the thick canopy of the hidden island's jungle, casting mottled patterns of light across the uneven ground. Elara Voss adjusted the straps of her pack as she and Kale Merrin moved cautiously forward, every step muffled by a carpet of moss and fallen leaves. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and blooming orchids, an intoxicating perfume that seemed to whisper secrets of the ages. "Keep your eyes open," Elara murmured, her sharp green eyes scanning the shadows. "We don't know what we might encounter here." Kale gave a half-smile, his tousled brown hair catching the sunlight. "You always say that, yet somehow we keep finding trouble." Elara allowed herself a brief smile before her expression hardened with resolve. The discovery of this island, hidden by the swirling mists and fierce storms that guarded it, was a turning point in their quest for the cartographer's compass. But more than that, it was a place alive with people guardians of a culture untouched by outsiders. As they ventured deeper, the jungle's chorus grew louder, vibrant birds with iridescent feathers flitted through the branches, their calls weaving an eerie symphony that echoed the island's ancient mysteries. The rustle of leaves and the distant splash of water blended into a natural orchestra, heightening Elara's senses. Suddenly, the underbrush parted, revealing a small group of island inhabitants. They emerged cautiously, adorned in natural fabrics dyed with earthy colors, their skin marked with intricate tattoos and symbols that seemed to pulse with meaning. Their eyes, sharp and wary, held the weight of generations spent guarding their home. Elara stepped forward slowly, hands raised in a gesture of peace. "We come seeking understanding, not conquest." The leader, a tall woman with braided hair woven with feathers, studied Elara intently before nodding slightly. The tension eased, and they were beckoned to follow. As dusk fell, the explorers found themselves seated around a flickering fire, the islanders' stories unfolding through song and dance. The rhythmic beating of drums and the haunting melodies painted vivid pictures of the floating island's origins and the sacred role the compass played in their history. The flames reflected in the eyes of the inhabitants, glowing with fierce pride and a deep connection to the land. Professor Lysandra Hale, who had joined them earlier, leaned in to examine carvings etched into a moss-covered stone. Her fingers traced the delicate lines as a soft rain began to fall, the droplets blurring the edges of the mysterious symbols. "These markings," she whispered, "tell of a balance between discovery and preservation. The compass is not merely a tool for navigation, it is a covenant." Elara absorbed the weight of those words, feeling the compass's pull in a new light. It was a guide not just through skies, but through the moral labyrinth of exploration. The following morning, standing at the edge of a cliff, Elara gazed out at the sprawling chain of floating islands shimmering under a clearing sky. The alliance forged here was fragile yet powerful, a testament to trust born from respect. "We have much to learn," she said quietly, "and even more to protect." Cal stood beside her, his usual wit softened by the gravity of the moment. "Then let's make sure we're ready for whatever comes next." Together, they turned back toward the jungle, the hidden alliance a beacon of hope and a reminder of the responsibility that came with discovery. The journey was far from over, but Elara's heart swelled with a determined wonder that no storm or shadow could diminish. The skies held secrets yet to be unveiled, and she was ready to face them, guided by the compass and the bonds she had forged beneath the clouds. But as the wind whispered through the leaves, carrying hints of distant danger, Elara couldn't shake the feeling that their greatest challenges were still ahead, waiting in the ever-shifting skies.